What's up, everybody? Coming to you live again from Mobile, Alabama. Day 2 for me of Senior Bowl festivities here with the opening day press conference yesterday. If you didn't check out my thoughts, my takeaways on that, and including some sound from Jim Nagy and Dylan Gabriel and Jalen Milroe, do so. I'll put that link down below. Today, players got on the field at Hancock Whitney Stadium here in Mobile for the first time, the national and the American team. As usual, some players flashed and stood out and grabbed my attention for the right reasons, most of them, and some for the wrong reasons. I'll give you my takeaways from day one, including a couple of players who stood out above the rest. And when it comes to the quarterbacks and all the big names that are in Mobile, the one that I thought performed the best today might be the one that you least suspect. Let's get into this. This is Seahawks Forever. I'm Dan. Let's go.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
This episode brought to you by the folks at BetUS. If you head over there now, you'll see all of the money lines and the prop bets for the Super Bowl between the Chiefs and the Eagles. And if you sign up for a new account today, they'll give you a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, 125% on your second and third deposits, up to $2,000 if you use the promo code YouTube150. Also, if you're into casino games, online casino games, they now have those as well, and they're being even more generous with their sign-up bonus, 200% up to $5,000 if that's your game. Check it out at BetUS also. All right, so we got to see the players on the field today, and one of the first things I noticed was, I think I said in the show yesterday, that I liked that they were doing it on a grass field. It's not grass. It's not grass at all. It's turf. Add it to the list of things that I learned today. You know, I mentioned in the show yesterday, it's been a long damn time since I've covered an event professionally like this. And I thought I accounted for every possibility, thought I planned for everything. No. Probably sunburned in a couple of spots. You'd think after decades on this earth as a ginger, I would learn. I will make up for that tomorrow. Thought I prepared myself equipment-wise. Brought the wrong binoculars, first of all. Brought my little portable ones, and I've used them at Seahawks games before. They work great. I don't know what happened to them. They were terrible. The left side didn't even focus. And so it was basically a telescope. So I'll bring the big guns, the Bushnells, tomorrow. And then I thought bringing an extra battery pack for the iPhone would get me through the session. It did not. I had to charge. I was almost out of battery power after the first morning practice session alone. And then charged up in between and was able to get me through the second one. But that leads to another lesson that I learned. I shot way too much video that I'll never use. And what I realized kind of halfway through is it's so overwhelming trying to keep up with watching everybody. You just can't. You just absolutely can't watch everybody here. I was just texting with Bryce Coots from the Hawks Zone Rundown podcast and co-host on the Pick Is In pod. Be sure and get over there and subscribe to that channel too. We just launched that. That'll focus on the draft outside of the Seahawks world. It'll go league-wide. And we're going to do a live show, by the way, tomorrow night with impressions of the first 2 days and get some of Bryce's thoughts on what he's seeing on video, and especially from some of the quarterbacks, because that's his area of expertise. You just can't watch them all. But I was talking to him about maybe next year, we can both come down here and then we can split up duties. And so in the second session, I decided to kind of put the phone down and just watch and just sort of, it's human nature. You want to focus on certain position groups and certain players, but just kind of wait for people to grab my attention, right? For players to flash. The frustrating part, my plan going into this was I'd focus on offense today for both teams, defense tomorrow, and then Thursday I would either play catch up on players I didn't get a chance to lay eyes on specifically, or follow up on players I wanted to watch more of. The problem is positioning. As far as media access goes, you're only allowed access to one side of the stadium, not into the end zones, just one side. And so it's kind of like if any of you have ever gone and watched a Seahawks training camp practice, it's sort of a roll of the dice. And occasionally you'll get there and they'll be on the far field and you can't see as much. That's sort of what happened today. I wanted to focus heavily, for obvious reasons, on the offensive line. But in the first session, the national team, I think I said in the little short blurb that I uploaded from the stadium to Twitter today that the national team was practicing second. No, they practiced first. The American team was second. But the early session, the offensive linemen were right in the southeast corner of the stadium. I was able to access it, stand right there, watch these guys up close. For the late session, the American team, the exact opposite, the northwest corner, away from where we're able to go. And so there's always coaches and sometimes front office personnel and other players sort of gathered around. And so when it came to the position drills and a lot of the things that I'd want to put my eyes on to see, how these guys move, where they're playing them, I wasn't able to watch any of that at all. And so a lot of the one-on-one pass rush stuff happened in that corner too. And so I was able to check out some of that in the early session, not the late session. So once I'm done here, I'll be spending my evening tonight going back and trying to find ESPN's coverage, NFL Network's coverage, other analysts who are here and have more access because some people are allowed on the field. It's a different level of credential, and try to get some of that video and I'll be spending the night watching film. Let's put it that way, or tape, whatever. I'm old, so film. But I will say this: one of my first observations was that there was somebody else who was watching the offensive line play today very closely, no matter where it was. First session, northeast corner or southeast corner. Second session, northwest corner. John Schneider. Mike McDonald was there as well. And I saw a picture of him online. I believe Brian Nemhauser, Hawk blogger, who I got to say hi to today, took a picture of them standing together early in the session, but I didn't see McDonald after that and was trying to spot where he went, assuming that maybe he was out, over looking at the edge guys, defensive line guys, any of the defensive players. Could not see him after that. But it's tough. Coaches all look the same. They all kind of shop at the same store and wear the same stuff. They're all wearing hats. And which was another among the lessons I learned today. Didn't take sunscreen with me, as I said. So, picked up this hat that helped a little bit for the late session, but all these guys look the same. So wasn't able to spot where he was. But John Schneider, every single time I looked for him, he was standing as close as you can stand to the offensive line group when they were doing their individual group work. Now, John's kind of famous for deception. We have seen him deny or feign interest in certain players because he doesn't want to tip his hand. I'm not sure if we've ever seen him look hard at a player just to sort of distract or divert attention. I guess in retrospect, you can make the argument that, the last couple of years when they've been at the top of the draft and had, clearer shots, 22 and 23 at a quarterback, they made a big deal. He and Pete did about how much they were looking at these guys. And, we may never know how serious some of that interest was, but you could say maybe that was an example of, him being really, publicly transparent about looking at a certain position group. And then famously, of course, there was him going to Wyoming to Josh Allen's pro day and, some of those things. But today he was watching the offensive line. And guys, I'm not going to try to overthink this. I have been telling y'all for months that those of you who glom onto the comments that he made about interior offensive linemen, especially often being overdrafted, overpaid, and then just the history of a lack of significant investment in the offensive line as far as free agency goes. They haven't really tried to offer a big contract to any free agent offensive lineman since TJ Lang. They tried to lure him away from the Lions. Before that, it was David Dielman from the Chargers that they tried to offer big time money to. And then you could kind of, I guess, include Gabe Jackson in that. I mean, they traded not insignificant draft capital for him and then extended him at decent money. But I think some of you, and I get it, there's cynicism involved here, and there's a history, there's a track record that backs up what he said, that other than Charles Cross at 9, most of the investment that he's made in the offensive line has happened from the 3rd round on. But I have been saying for months that I think you can expect it to be different this offseason for 3 reasons, I suppose. One is it's the most glaring weakness on the team without a doubt. The thing that held them back from winning an 11th or 12th or 13th game, getting into the playoffs, doing some damage. He knows that. And he does have a history of attacking the biggest weakness on the team. Sometimes maybe a little too late. We saw that with the edge group kind of for years after they traded Frank Clark. They were sort of playing catch up and just trying to find lightning in a bottle and sort of trying to spackle that together with Band-Aid and rubber bands sometimes until they finally got it right. We've saw him do that with the running back group, with Pete's help, maybe over a couple of years after they were just ravaged by injuries there, and even had to pull Marshawn Lynch off the couch to help in a playoff race a few years ago, and then really attacked that in the draft the next couple of years. We've seen him do it in other position groups. We saw him take an axe to the safety group and fix it. We saw in the middle of the season last year, take a machete to the inside linebacker group and fix it. So I could argue that 5-6 years ago, cornerback was in horrible condition. Address that. So that's one reason. Number 2 is his head coach wants to play a certain style of football and was paid a lot of money to do it. Up until this year, I think, we don't ever really hear about these coaches' salaries because they're not part of a union. It doesn't have to be disclosed. But it sounds like Ben Johnson set a new record. But last year, Mike McDonald reportedly signed the richest contract ever for a rookie head coach. He wants to play a certain way. He won 10 games with a terrible offensive line. He's going to demand that be fixed. We have seen that from him, the inside linebacker group. Again, another example of that. So that's another reason. And number 3, and it kind of ties all of this together, his job is dependent on it, I believe, more than ever. If he doesn't fix it, if next year they go into that season and he tries to, again, piece it together with bargains, Moneyball style, and just rely on the young players they've drafted in the last couple of years and try to throw another Laken Tomlinson-esque type free agent signing into there, and it fails and they fail to make the playoffs again, I think his seat gets red hot and it might cost him his job. And so I think for all of those reasons, you can expect them to address that position. I think they're going to address it partially in free agency. I think they're going to make a significant move there, but they're also looking hard at this group, and they should. It's a good group. It's a very good group. So I tried to focus on the offensive side today. Let's start with the quarterbacks, because that's where a lot of the attention is. And again, you can chalk this up as another lesson that I learned today. Not until I was in an Uber on the way home. And my goodness, speaking of lessons, I am spoiled by living in Seattle. Anytime I ever need to go anywhere, I get a Lyft or an Uber within a minute. In fact, I learned after moving into the city, I'd always lived in the suburbs my entire life in that area until about 3 years ago. Don't order your Lyft or Uber until you're down in the lobby of your apartment building, because they'll get there that fast. They will beat you there. Here, different story, especially after the event ended. It's, the first time I ordered a Lyft just to make a simple little short trip, it was a 10-minute wait. I was like, wait a minute, what? I'm shaking my phone like, this can't be right. And so that's another thing that I learned. But anyway, back to the quarterbacks. That's where a lot of the attention comes from. And the point I was trying to make is I think it was Matt Miller that tweeted after the game. It was either Dane Brugler or Matt Miller. Said he learned early on covering the Senior Bowl not to watch the quarterbacks very closely the first day because it's such an adjustment for them. Brand new receivers they've never worked with, right? There's a timing issue there. Brand new install, and you could see a lot of that happening today. There was a lot of half speed stuff early in these sessions. And then with all the individual drills, defensive and offensive, there's a period where they have to show them the drill first, kind of go through it slow motion before they can cut it loose. So really looking forward to tomorrow because I expect things to hit the ground running a little bit more. But for the quarterbacks, throwing to new guys, learning a new offense, being overwhelmed with information, and a lot of new stuff. These guys are working from under center for the first time. They've worked on it occasionally. Some of these guys ran some under center stuff in college, and they work on it with their private QB coaches and their draft prep and their training that they're doing on the side. So it's not brand new. They don't show up to the Senior Bowl having never taken snaps, but it's different. And it just adds another thing to their plate when it can already be overwhelming. And we did see, especially in the later session, the American group, which had more of the big name quarterbacks, a lot of fumbled snaps and poor center exchanges. So there's that going on too. But sometimes these guys struggle so much on day one. I think I remember, Bo Nix really had a rough day one last year. And then they get comfortable. So I thought that was really good insight that I will follow in the future. You just kind of let the quarterbacks get their feet under them on day one. But that being said, some guys still looked more comfortable than others, still looked better than others. For the most part, I'll say this about this group. The talent level is very, very even. With maybe one exception, I thought Seth Henniger, I believe his name is, from Memphis in the late session, just honestly, to me, had a terrible day. It didn't look like a guy that really belonged here. And seeing as how they have 7 quarterbacks here, it'll be interesting to see how they divvy up those drives. Don't love the way that they divided up these teams. So in the early session, you had Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. You had Taylor Elgersma, the Canadian quarterback, who was incredibly intriguing, had the best arm there. What I like about him, and maybe it lends itself a little bit to the style of football in Canada, and we'll talk to Bryce about that tomorrow on the other channel. The pick is in tomorrow. I want to get his thoughts on Taylor because he's obviously, being from Canada and coaching quarterbacks, he's seen a lot of them. You see a lot of throws on tape that are touch throws, finesse throws, really understands how to put loft on the deep ball, but also looks, when he's throwing the deep ball, like he has a lot of miles per hour left. Like maybe, he's throwing 91, but he could rear back and throw 97 when he needs to. And there were a couple times today where he let it loose on some intermediate throws, and it was impressive. But Gabriel, I thought, in that early group stood out the most. Who's the other quarterback from that group that I'm forgetting? It was Tyler Shuck, who also threw a really, really pretty ball, had a nice arm, just didn't really have any memorable moments, didn't have any bad moments either. So that's another guy that I'll get a little better look at tomorrow. But then you come out for the late session, and you've got Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, and Riley Leonard, along with Hannigan. I keep wanting to say Mitch Haniger. All in the same group. And I think most people want to watch Milroe and Dart. Would have loved to have seen those guys divided up. But here's how I would categorize my observations of those guys today. Dart looked really comfortable. Really comfortable. If you were showing up and you didn't know who was who, you might think he's the guy. Even little things like how he called his cadence just seemed much more confident than those other guys. Made a couple throws on the run, in one in particular, rolling to his left, which I thought was cool. Was accurate to a point, as much as you can be, I think, on day one, where he's throwing catchable balls. Most of his balls were caught, but some of them were slightly behind the receiver. Milroe really struggled. And if you watched yesterday's show, obviously raved about his maturity, his leadership ability, the way he's able to articulate the kind of player he wants to be and the work that he puts into it and what his priorities are. Very, very impressive guy, as I pointed out yesterday. And I think teams are going to fall in love with that. But the idea that he might be ready to play right away today might give people pause to think that. Very, very raw. When you're watching him, first of all, lots of questions about the hand size. 8.6 inches yesterday. Historically small-ish hands, about the size of Kenny Pickett. But I'll say this, in warmups and early stuff and throwing against air, I don't see the hand size impacting him throwing the football. Some of those guys with smaller hands, it kind of looks like they're shot putting the ball. I remember that's the way I felt about Matt Flynn back in the day. I mean, he throws a really tight spiral, gets rid of the ball quick. He's got a good release, and the ball's got some zip on it, and he's got plenty of arm strength. Where the hand size is a concern is he has fumbled. I looked it up yesterday. I think he lost between 10 and 12 fumbles in his time in Alabama. Ball security is where that comes into play, and that would be an issue and a concern for some teams. It's what he struggled with today was accuracy. And I saw a couple analysts. I think Brian used the word processing, thought he was slow to process. I will say this, for the most part, I think the defense won the day. I didn't see a lot of open receivers. Just about every throw any of these quarterbacks made was contested. How much of that is very, very limited offensive install? The defenders, figuring out the routes pretty quick. I don't know, but almost every single throw was contested. These guys had to be on point. And some of the better completions we saw today, one from Elgersma, was back shoulder type stuff. But even throwing against air, there was a ball on an in-breaking route that Milroe threw into the ground, into the turf, a couple of feet in front of the guy's feet. Sailed a couple of balls high, missed on some deep throws. Just accuracy-wise, he wasn't good. Now, I will say this. I think at this point in his career, and if he has to play early in the league, he's going to make plays with his feet. That's such a big part of his identity and who he is. And that's not really an option in these first couple of days of practice. They want these guys to sit back in the pocket. The defenders aren't allowed to hit them. And so there are times where even when it looks like the pocket collapses a little bit and maybe a pass rusher can get to him, they sort of let the play extend and he can kind of get out half speed. There are times when, if it was live action in a game, he probably goes and tries to make a play with his feet. That's just not the focus in this environment and in this setting. And so kind of tough to judge him fully because he's just standing back there trying to make plays. So, I'll be looking to see how he bounces back tomorrow. I promise you I would tell you which quarterback I thought looked the best out of all these guys and that it might surprise you. I thought Riley Leonard had a very, very, very good day. Dylan Gabriel had a good morning session. We talked yesterday in that soundbite I played for you about being surgical and accuracy is his thing. The thing about Gabriel is this. He throws a pretty ball, but that frame, he's just being his size. It takes some effort. When Russell Wilson was doing his thing at 5'10", he had such huge hands and he had such a live arm that the ball really jumped out of his hand. That's not the case with Gabriel. It kind of looks like he has to wind up a little bit to get it there. But he had a smooth day, I thought. Leonard was the most accurate consistently throughout the day. Had in sort of not full contact, but full 11 on 11, had the best throw of the day, hitting a kind of an in-breaking sort of a little short post route. Don't want to call it a slant because receiver broke on it, but also it wasn't a 90-degree dig either. But tightly covered over the middle, had to get the ball right in the receiver's breadbasket and did. That was the best contested throw of the day. But he was just, I thought if they kept stats today, I would guess that fewer of Riley Leonard's passes hit the turf today than anybody. The arm's not great, but it's not a liability. It's kind of what I saw on tape. I'm not willing to say he's jumped up above day 3 yet, but for a player who, when you watch on tape, sometimes leaves you wanting more, I thought he had a good day. And that's all you can do when you come out here. Now, talk about the offensive linemen. And again, I didn't get to see the team, the group drills or the individual drills as much because they were in a part of the stadium we couldn't access. But early on, there were a couple of guys I was looking at. I thought Marcus Bowe from Purdue really looked outstanding. Interestingly enough, even at his kind of lack of length, I think the arm length checked out okay yesterday, but just barely 300 pounds. He played, when I was watching him, mostly tackled today. You could see some of the things on tape translate, like very, very aggressive, very quick out of his stance, good hand usage, good punch. I thought he looked really good today. But the star of the day, to my eye, was Grey Zabel. North Dakota State University, right? One of those guys that goes to NDSU and stays there. They've got a really robust NIL program there. They are basically the Alabama of the FCS level, challenging for national championships every year. They've sent a bunch of linemen recently to the NFL. Cody Mock seems to be doing okay. Zabel's a guy that played guard and tackle during his time at NDSU. 6'5", 300. I think he weighed in at 305, 306 officially yesterday. When I first saw him today in sort of the preliminary practice, the beginning of practice, saw him playing center. And that really intrigued me. For the rest of the day, though, especially in the contact stuff, 7-on-7, shell, 11-on-11, played mostly guard and tackle. At every single position today, he looked good. And in the individual pass rush drills, he was phenomenal. There was one rep early on that impressed me the most because initially it looked like he lost the rep, got blown back, but recovered, anchored, and won the rep. Very, very impressive. Now, I got to give credit where credit's due. Michael Thompson from 12th Man Rising. Haven't had him on the show in way too long. That's going to be remedied soon. He's been telling me about Grey Zabel for, most of the entirety of the college football season. And he was right. He thinks after what I told him today about his performance that maybe he sneaks into the first round. Don't know about that. It's a very, very good class. And the class is full of guys like Zabel that can play in multiple positions, not because they have to, because of lack of length or lack of athletic ability, but because they can. And that really lends itself to the Seahawks and what they're looking for. I like the idea that they can take a guy, Armand Membo, another guy today out of Missouri that fits that mold and look good. Jonas Savanaya out of Arizona, another guy today that looked good that fits that mold. I mean, the list goes on. And then there were some names that are lesser known today that some of the big time analysts have sung the praises of today that I just didn't get a chance to see up close because they were in that late session. Zabel, but Michael did say he thinks Zabel might solidify himself as a top 50 pick. Unfortunately, there's a chance that based on projections I'm seeing, and certainly it's early, he may fall sort of in the middle before the Seahawks have their 2 picks at 18 in the first round and then their second rounder. If that's a guy that they really have conviction about and want to get, maybe they try to trade back in round 1, or they might have to try and get aggressive and move up in round 2. But I got a chance to catch up with Grey Zabel, and so I thought you guys would enjoy this little bit of sound. Again, so we didn't get media availability is incredibly limited at these things. You get 10 minutes after each practice session to try and grab these guys, and there's tons of media there. And so I was only able to grab a couple of players. And then the second session, I didn't even try to, just wanted to try and catch an Uber and get back, because I'll have opportunities obviously tomorrow and Thursday, but tomorrow in particular, after all the practices are done at the convention center downtown, they're having a proper media day that lasts about an hour and a half. Every player's there. You can request. I'll get a chance to talk to some of the guys tomorrow. So when we get to the end of the show, I'll ask you guys to kind of put in your request down below who you'd like to hear from. But this is 48 seconds of me chatting with Grey Zabel of NDSU. How would you assess your first day down here?
It was good. Got to come out and put the pads on and compete against guys, but there's going to be some stuff we got to clean up in film, hand placement, foot angles, all that stuff. So looking forward to get to the film room and kind of clean up what was off.
Coming from the FCS level to, best collection of talent college football has to offer, didn't seem like the game was too fast for you. How'd that feel today?
Yeah, it felt really well. NDSU prepares you for the next level and going against top dudes day in and day out. So coming down here, it was a good change of pace off the bat, but kind of settled in right away.
Played tackle and guard for the Bison, but I saw some center today. They're moving you all over the place. What did they tell you the plan was for you this week?
Could have played offensive line this week, so just put me in wherever and go and try and do my best and compete.
Any contact with the Seattle Seahawks yet?
I'm not for sure yet.
Okay. Outstanding mustache there. I'm going to give him a high grade on that. Just he talks like a guy that played college football in North Dakota, doesn't he? And went there, stayed his whole career, like just grounded and humble, and love his answer to, what's the plan? My follow-up, if I had more time with him, would have been like, where's your preference? But I think it would have been the same answer. He's like, I'm an offensive lineman, wherever they want to play me. Absolutely love that. I thought that was cool. The wide receivers today, a couple guys stood out. Tez Johnson from Oregon was one in particular. Now, I had heard that, and again, have to give credit to Michael Thompson. He's been we've been doing some mock drafts together, kind of back and forth for the last couple of months, and Johnson's been a big favorite of his, and I can see why. Very Zay Flowers-ish in his release off the line of scrimmage. How quick he is. Had a couple of releases today that I thought reminded me a little bit of Doug Baldwin, but he's so quick. He can create separation. I mean, he is slight of frame. He is small, but he's going to be a weapon for someone. He really caught my eye and stood out today, especially in the one-on-one stuff and 7-on-7s. I do have video little highlights of some of these guys. So if you don't follow me on Twitter already at Seahawks Forever, hit me up there and follow me, because I'll be uploading some of that stuff tonight as I settle in. But Kyle Williams, the one lone WSU Cougar there, go Cougs. Interesting story, because he wasn't supposed to be in Mobile. So ask him about a late change there. I thought coming into this process, he was an underrated guy, highly, highly productive at WSU, and even before that when he transferred in. A guy that catches the ball well and can take the top off, get downfield, runs good routes, and has reliable hands. And so it was good to see him there. Had a chance to catch up with Kyle Williams and chat it up a little bit. So you had already accepted an invite. You were going to go to the Shrine game, right? And then you get the call from Jim Nagy. How did that whole thing happen?
It's crazy. It was a late exception, a late invite from both the Shrine and the East and the West. So I was banking my head on the combine at first, but I got the Shrine and I was excited to go. And then when I got the Reese, I was like, you know what? I want to compete against the best of the best. I always want to see if my talent uphold and my work ethic, and that's what I just wanted to do.
How'd you feel like today went?
I feel like it went good. You know, I can always be better in certain things, make better plays, make some more catches, but I just got to continue to stack.
Who do you model your game after?
Stephon Diggs, man. In and out, his break, versatility, creative. I just love his confidence.
Any contact with the Seahawks yet?
A little bit here and there, nothing too major, but we'll see till draft day, see what happens.
Interesting that Grey Zabel, who would fit a massive need for the Seahawks, said no contact with the Seahawks. Kyle Williams said here and there. Receivers a sneaky need. It really is. You know, if we assume that Tyler Lockett's going to move on, and I think we do, and Jackson Smith-Njigba has firmly established himself as one of the better slot receivers in the league, just got invited to the Pro Bowl, in quotations, the Pro Bowl games today when someone pulled out. Leonard Williams also being named to the team today. And then, you know, DK Metcalf just being a different kind of dude on the outside, need another guy. You know, I think they're going to be looking for in free agency to add a veteran, but also someone that can play inside and outside in this draft. Not really sure that Williams fits that mold, but interesting to hear that he had some contact. And maybe the fact that Zabel hasn't just kind of fits that old John Schneider sort of MO of not giving his hand away, right? Let's let's do this. Let's get to some of your comments and questions first. Bryce with the super thanks. Thanks, man. Hey, Dan, hope you're having fun down there. How did Taylor Elgersma look given the jump for him? Again, I thought, you know, he has the biggest adjustment of any of these quarterbacks because not only did I not see one single under center snap from him in anything I could find online, watching him play at Laurier up in Canada. First Canadian quarterback ever invited to play in the Senior Bowl, by the way. So the under center stuff was new to him, but also learning to play with one less guy on the field, no motion at the snap, no running towards the line of scrimmage at the snap. I mean, he's been working at it. Obviously, he's actually been working at a quarterback or with a private quarterback coach at an academy down here in Alabama. And it's one of the reasons that Jim Nagy was turned on to him, got a recommendation from the guy that runs that camp. He's got the biggest arm here by far. As I kind of touched on earlier, like when he decides to let it loose, he can really let it go. He looks really natural. And for a guy who's 6'5", moves really well too. So, whereas a lot of these players, I talked about it last night, like practice is the most important thing for them. I'm not so sure that, that he's not going to be helped the most by getting a chance to perform the game. And so hopefully he gets a couple of series, early and late. Question about Tyler Shook. Again, these might have come in before I addressed it. He's just one of those guys that kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. But I'll say this, like he didn't attract my attention with any bad reps. Like he looks pretty natural and has a very, very, very good arm. He's a player that he's one that I haven't watched a single stitch of tape on yet. Some of these guys, I purposely didn't because you can't watch them all. At least I can't. And so then I'll cater some of my priority of who I watch after the game, after this week to what I saw. And he's certainly a guy that I want to watch some game tape on. Sean Thompson, you guys are really killing it. Thank you for your hard work. With a shout out to Bryce there as well, who I'm in constant communication with about stuff that's happening down here. Yeah, Bryce, I got a whole bunch of them. I kind of went with the lighter color. Usually I get darker hats. I go with gray or black. But I thought this would be a little bit different in my collection. I got to get the bill completely worked in there. What's going on there? Here, wait. Oh shit. I shouldn't have touched it at all. They got some good merch. I get sucked in by the merch. Bought a shirt too. There's a good chance that I'll come home with another hat tomorrow as well. Let me do this, and then real quick, and then I will come back and talk about, even though I was focusing on the offense today, there were some defensive players that caught my eye. How could it not? And I'll give you my impressions on that. But first, this word about our sponsor, Doer, built for doing. Shopdoer.com, DUER.com. I made this slogan up. It's the best apparel company you've never heard of. I'd never heard of them before they approached me, but I absolutely am a huge fan. These are my go-to jeans. Wore them today, wearing them now. These stretch performance jeans, 20% stretch, yet they're built to last. You can tell as soon as you take them out of the bag when they're delivered to you. They are quality, sustainable materials, antibacterial materials, breathable. These moleskin shirts, really soft, really comfortable, bunch of different colors and styles. I've got a couple of these. And right now, for being a viewer or a listener to this program, you can get 20% off your first order. If you're in Denver or LA, they have their flagship stores there. You can go check them out there. But go to shopdoer.com, DUER.com/forever, and get your 20% off your first order. So on the defensive side of things, a couple of guys really stood out, even though I wasn't trying to pay as much attention to the defenders. First of all, let me see if I can jog my brain here. Looking at some of these defensive linemen. Dion Walker from Kentucky, 6'7", all 6'7", 355 pounds of him. Doesn't look that. Like, he carries that weight so well. And I had heard that he was a little high cut, that maybe his base isn't what you'd want for that size. I don't know. He looked comfortable to me. He just looked really, really athletic, like a smooth mover and powerful. Incredibly powerful. He was fun to watch. Jack Kaiser, inside linebacker, Notre Dame, undersized, but so many of these linebackers these days are. Like the days of the Jack Campbell types that are more in that throwback mold, 6'4", 245. Those guys are hard to find. You're just not going to find them anymore because the college game being so spread heavy, like you got to be able to run and cover. You got to be able to run sideline to sideline. You got to be able to cover in the passing game. So a lot of these guys out here, 225, 230, thought Kaiser just looked like a pro, just really, really good movement skills, really able to flip his hips and get back in coverage. And always seems to be around the ball. Smail Mondon from Georgia was a guy going into this thing that I thought looked good. And I just thought his frame kind of reminded me of Tyrese Knight from last year, able to run around sideline to sideline and cover as well. But the guy that stood out to me, even though I wasn't trying to watch him, was Wyatt Black from Iowa. Big. Let me see what his dimensions are here. Hold on. He is intense, physical, relentless, outstanding motor, heavy hands, listed 6'5", 317, plays bigger than that. Like, he's a guy that can move inside and outside. He can stand up to a double team, but he can get after the passer too. Got into the one scuffle of the day with Wyatt Milroe out of West Virginia. Black is a guy that I can't wait to watch more of, and just happened to be watching some tape on him as I was flying in. Very, very impressive. Defensive line is a huge need, you guys. They have to come out of this group, as I said last night, with one of these players at least. Ideally, one of these edge players and one of these interior D linemen, or a guy that can move around. There's a lot of guys like Black that are bigger, can play that big edge, but also have enough juice to get after the passer. Shamar Stewart, Texas A&M, was another guy today that I thought fit that mold and really looked good. So tomorrow I'll be focusing, more on the defensive guys and trying to get a better look at the American team in the late session on the offensive line. And then Mike Green, the kid from Marshall, 17 sacks in 2024 and 3 forced fumbles. There were some concerns that he might come up a little bit short in length. And while he doesn't have the longest arms in the world, his weight came out okay. And he looked every bit the part of what you see when you look at the production. Twitched up, quick off the ball, incredibly explosive, and a guy that I could see Mike McDonald really, really falling in love with. So those are some of the players that stood out to me. Outside of Milroe, and again, I hesitate to put too much weight into that. Please, if you're hearing this, don't think, oh, nope, that does it. That confirms my prior. I don't want any part of Milroe. Day one for the quarterbacks is tough. And we knew coming into this that he was raw and that he needed a little bit of development, and that he's not a guy that you're going to draft and play right away. Not ideally, not for a team like the Seahawks. He's a player that you want to develop, and kind of a lottery ticket. You're banking on the traits. You're banking on the exposure to big moments and playing against the best of the best in the SEC. But he can show scouts, teams, GMs, me, a lot tomorrow by coming out and just being more accurate. That's really all it's about. And then he's a guy that I could see on Saturday, as much as, again, the practices are probably a little bit more important. He's a guy that I could see coming out and making some plays on Saturday and winning MVP. Like, that's just the kind of player he is, right? There's going to be weaknesses. All of these quarterback prospects are flawed. Every single one of them, even the two that aren't here that are projected to go at the top of the draft. Even Kyle McCord, who's reportedly lighting it up and really making some money for himself at the Shrine game practices. That game, by the way, is Thursday night. Can't wait to watch that from here. I'm thinking about doing a watch party for the Shrine game. Little bonus action, and just commenting on it, watching it along with you guys live. Let me know what you think of that idea down in the comments below. That might be kind of fun, especially if I can get a couple of people to join me. That would be cool. Let me take a moment and say this. Again, cannot thank all of you enough. Got over 8,000 subscribers a couple of days ago. It's been about 2 years since I launched this channel after the field goals thing, after Vox Media shut that down. And to experience the growth and see the channel get to the point that not only I can be here at an event that I've watched my entire life and that I have a tremendous amount of respect and reverence for, to be here. Like, today was kind of surreal. There were moments where I just felt like I was back home again. Like it was 30 years ago and I was covering a local high school football team, or I was at Seahawks training camp, or out at the University of Mary in Bismarck, North Dakota, covering their football team. And it felt very natural because I'd done it for so long, and there's a muscle memory involved there. But also there would be, every once in a while, I would just kind of be overcome with gratitude and sort of I need to pinch myself moment, because I gave that life up 30 years ago. And the podcasting thing has been fun, but I never really expected it to lead back to where I started. And yet here I am, walking around with a Senior Bowl credential around my neck and getting access to these players and getting to watch this stuff up close. Incredibly grateful to all of you who have helped make that happen by just watching the channel and being a subscriber, sharing, commenting, hitting the thumbs up. All of those things feed into the algorithm on YouTube and help to grow the show. All of you who listen on audio. And the fact that I'm here, and that I am giving serious consideration to taking a bit of a crazy leap and spending some time focusing on this, and maybe taking a break and stepping away from my career for a bit, scares the crap out of me, but is also really thrilling and exciting. And you guys made that happen. And then in particular, all of those of you who have contributed directly to me being here. I don't even know that there are words to express my thanks. and my gratitude to all of you for helping me do that. So thank you very, very much. It's pretty overwhelming, and I'm having a great time. Let me see here. Here go the glasses again. Check in on some of these. Crumpled Zinc, I believe new to the channel. Don't know that I've ever seen that name. Maybe I missed it. Did you notice which position groups JS and MM seem to be the most interested in? Yeah, you did miss it at the beginning. So when they were first spotted, both of them side by side, arms folded, watching the offensive line group up close. And then they split, and I could never find McDonald again. I kept trying to look for him with the edge guys or maybe the linebackers. I couldn't see him. But as I mentioned earlier, these guys all blend in together. They all wear the same clothes. They're all wearing hats. They all look the same. Something about being a football coach, like that, there aren't, I don't know, this is weird. There aren't very many blonde football coaches. Like, so those that weren't wearing hats, they just all look the same. Like I saw Dave Canales today, former Seahawk quarterback coach, obviously passing game coordinator and now head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Saw him there. But I lost track of McDonald, but Schneider was glued to the offensive line the entire day. I did not see him anywhere else. So maybe that's a little bit of smoke and mirrors. He's trying to distract you, but I don't think so. There's most of the front office personnel coaches were parked on the other side of the field away from the media. I'll be able to get a better feel tomorrow when I bring my better binoculars, and I'm going to spend less time videotaping practice and more time just zeroing in and watching players, observing them, and also just kind of try to track those guys, play a little Where's Waldo. But yeah, as Bryce said, that is correct. They were around the O-line all day, in particular Schneider. Here's Bryce chiming in again on the quarterbacks. Biggest adjustment day one. You're installing most of the day. Tomorrow should show better. Chance for these guys to really, and I think that tells teams a lot too. I don't think any NFL scouts are going to be watching today and thinking, I don't know about Milroe. Their attitude will most likely be, plus they've watched tens of, dozens of hours of film on him already. So they already have, most teams. And I'm sure the Seahawks do this because I remember a couple of years ago, Schneider giving an interview early in the process. They've got their boards under construction already. And I know Schneider said that he likes to have their board built before they go to the combine, and then they kind of adjust things slightly, tweak it, and finalize it based on the new information that they get from that point forward. But yeah, it's none of these guys from teams are going to be holding today against Milroe. If the whole week is bad, certainly that'll figure into their evaluation, but he's got a real chance to bounce back tomorrow. And then he's a guy too. It's the whole process. It's just one tiny little piece of the process. I anticipate Jalen Milroe being a guy that could really help himself at the combine. MWM wants me to interview Elgersma. Yeah, he's one of the guys that I will absolutely seek out on Wednesday. I guess it's just sort of how my mind thinks, as opposed to trying to get in on all the big names on media day tomorrow, because you see interviews with those guys everywhere. I'm going to try to focus on some who are flying a little more under the radar. That's why I wanted to talk to Zabel today. Clay Webb out of Jacksonville State is another guy that I want to catch up with tomorrow. Was incredibly impressed by him. Glad I didn't forget about him. He's a guy that played guard at Jacksonville State, was a Georgia recruit as a freshman, was a 5-star recruit, was considered the #1 center prospect coming out of high school, but then strictly played guard at Jacksonville State. So we know he can play center. Didn't see him doing it today, but man, the intensity. He's known as an elite pass blocker who's also capable in the run game. And I saw him really get after guys. Like, he's aggressive in how he gets after his stance and his punch and everything else. Really, really impressed with Clay Webb. So that's another example of a guy that I'll be seeking out tomorrow. I kind of like to get some of these under the radar guys. And so, yeah, Elgersma is certainly a guy that I'll get into as well, and try to get quite a bit of video on him today also, so I could do a package on him A reminder that Friday is a dark day here, nothing going on. And so that'll be a day while I will go live that day, and I might play around with maybe thinking about doing a mock draft with Senior Bowl, like a 7-round Seahawks mock draft with only senior guys that are here eligible to be picked. I think that'll be fun. So join me for that. But also I'll be uploading just kind of more sort of traditional old, again, going back to my roots in the old news business, doing some video packages and whatnot for some of these guys. And then Deion Walker, yeah, I mentioned him earlier. He's a guy that stands out. You can't miss him. You cannot miss him. Only got to see him really in positional drills today. But he's somebody that I'll be watching much, much closer as I focus on the defense tomorrow. And I think he's a guy that I'm going to seek out at media day tomorrow as well. Guys, I think that's going to do it. Here, let me try something new here because I've got my different router here. So I apologize for not having the metal to go out with that you guys are used to for me. But let's see how this works. This is built into StreamYard. Again, if you're not following me on Twitter and Blue Sky, please do at Seahawks Forever. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that thumbs up to like the video. That helps with the algorithm. Hit that bell button so you're notified anytime I go live. You'll get notification of that and all future episodes or any content that I upload. And I will be uploading those interviews and some of these short clips to the YouTube channel without any commentary or anything else, just to give you guys something to watch. We are limited in, we can only show 2 minutes of video a day from the practice sessions. That's why I didn't show a bunch of stuff here today. Don't want to risk losing my credentials. But keep an eye on that. Tomorrow, again, same kind of situation. We'll do a live show. It'll be later tomorrow, though, after I get back from media day. And then Bryce Coots and I are going to go live late tomorrow night on the Pick Is In pod. So follow that Twitter account at the Pick Is In pod, and also head over to the YouTube page. That description and link is down below for you to subscribe to that channel as well, because Bryce and I are going to get into some evaluations, some of the things he's seen outside of the world of the Seahawks and more league wide, and just basically talking about some of the guys that have popped for us as prospects. Until then, shout out to BetUS again for sponsoring this program. Thanks to all of you for watching and supporting me and the show. Forever and always go Hawks. Until next time. We'll see you tomorrow.